Welcome, YCYW students and parents, to the second episode of our YCYW CUGO webinar series. In tonight's episode, we'll be focusing on applying to universities in the UK, and we're extremely fortunate to have Dr. Purcell Wong and also Dr. Eunice, admissions directors from University of Cambridge's Downing College, to come share about the unique learning experience that is University of Cambridge, and also insights on how our students can prepare if they're interested and want to attend university there. Because tonight's episode will be longer than usual, we will not have the live Q&A at the end of the broadcast. If you do have any questions during the broadcast, feel free to put your questions in the chat box. And I and my colleagues will be answering your questions in the chat box. Welcome everyone again to our YCYW CUGO webinar series. We are really fortunate to have Dr. Wong and Dr. Eunice from University of Cambridge Downing College to come share about the amazing aspects of the university. But enough from me. I'm going to pass over to our two guest speakers to just maybe introduce themselves. Dr. Eunice, may I ask for you to start?
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Cameron Eunice. I'm an associate professor at the Department of Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology here at the University of Cambridge. But as well as that, I'm also affiliated with Downing College, which is one of the colleges at Cambridge. And my role at Downing College is I'm the director for admissions. So I'm in charge of all the undergraduate admissions that happen at Downing College. But as well as that, we value a lot on our outreach and widening participation. And I also head up all of our international programs at Downing College. So I'm the director for all of our international programs that are held at Downing College.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Wong, would you mind introducing yourself? And just for everyone, Dr. Wong has been kindly enough to share her answers in Chinese, because we know many members of our community, Chinese is a language, is their first language, and we just really want to acknowledge and recognize that we have a bilingual community. And so thank you, Dr. Wong.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll switch to Chinese now. 各位好，我呢叫汪萌萌，然后呢，我现在在 Downing College 担任 Downing College International Program 国际项目的主管。那在这个job 之前呢，我其实在剑桥已经待了有20年了。我在05年的时候呢，进入剑桥大学读工程系的本科，然后呢一直到工程系的这个博士毕业。所以呢，我作为一个国际学生在剑桥大学读了10年的这个书，然后呢之后呢就在那个 Homerton College 以及我们唐宁学院工作。所以呢，大家如果有任何的问题，想要从一个学生的角度，或者说从一个老师的角度去看在剑桥的这个经历，或者是对剑桥有任何的问题的话呢，都可以询问我。
Thank you. Great. So I'll just start with our first set of questions, and thank you for our community members, students, parents, and counselors for sending in these questions. So I've synthesized these questions and we'll be asking our panelists. So first, actually, we just wanted to know about, what do you enjoy most about Downing College, whether it be teaching or in whichever role that you're currently in?
So just to kind of touch on that, I actually started working at the University of Cambridge about 21 years ago. And when I joined the university, I soon after that became a member of Downing College. What's the thing I enjoy the most about the college? It's its community. It's a place where a lot of academics and students all get together. It's a great environment where you can actually talk to other subject specialists as well. So there's professors or academics from all different faculties and departments. So you get to have a bit of a community where you get to meet people from different subjects. And the really nice thing about Downing College is the fact that it's got a very broad spectrum of academics, which are members of the college, and it has students from all academic courses coming and studying at the college. So you get to meet a lot of different people while you're here. And that's probably the nicest thing about Downing that I like, is that whole kind of community spirit, but an opportunity to meet people from different parts of the world, but also people studying different subjects, not just the one you're specializing in.
Dr. Wang, how about yourself?
那因为我自己当年在做学生的时候呢，我没有在唐宁学院，我在这个 New Hall 学院，然后呢，我之后教书呢，在唐宁学院之前，我也是在这个 Homerton 学院，所以呢，我可能，然后我有很多的朋友在 undergraduate 到 PhD 的时候都在各种各样的学院，所以呢，我觉得我可能对学院来讲，各种各样的学院我都有一定的体验。那我觉得唐宁学院它比较这个独特和特别的地方呢，我自己觉得主要是它的 location 特别的好，它的地点特别的好。因为其实剑桥虽然不像我们中国的城市每个城市那么大，但是呢，就是因为剑桥的各个学院都是分布在剑桥的各个地方，然后剑桥的各个系也是分布在剑桥的各个地方。那有的时候选择学院的时候呢，和这个 location 是非常有关系的。那唐宁学院的话呢，它的 location 非常非常的在 central， 就在市中心，那你去任何的 department 呢，其实它的距离都不是太远，这是第一个非常好的。那第二个呢，因为剑桥的各个学院它的历史都不一样，那比如说呢，你比如说像Trinity 啊，像 Peterhouse， 它非常非常的有历史。那有历史的话，很多学生很喜欢历史感，那可以去。那另外的一个问题可能是它的 facility 是没有那么的现代。那 Downing College 呢，那唐宁学院呢，它是在所有学院当中，它的年纪是在最中间的，它是19世纪的时候建造的，所以它既有这个历史感，看上去有那种就是columns 什么，你知道吗？就是有很多那种就是像这个英国啊或者是欧洲那些建筑感，但是呢，它的那个比如说我们在学院里面住的时候，它的 facilities 呢又是非常的现代的，所以我觉得这个呢刚好是一个比较好的一个结合。所以我自己觉得在这么多的学院里面，如果说因为每个学院都很有特点，那唐宁学院的特点呢，我觉得一个是它地点很好，然后第二的话呢，它的 facilities 很好，它的设施非常的好。
Thank you, Dr. Wang. And thank you for also sharing about what you feel like makes Downing College unique from the other colleges. But I actually realized maybe some of our audience members may not actually know the college system in Cambridge. So can I just ask you to share about, from your perspective, how would you describe the college system that's at Cambridge? Dr. Yunus, if I can go to you first.
That's a very good question. That's one of the things when I first arrived at Cambridge, I found quite confusing when I arrived here as like, what is a college? How does it work? How does it fit in within the university infrastructure? And the best way of describing it is the colleges, they work, the way to think about it, they work in synergy with the departments and faculties at the university. So if you are an undergraduate student, when you join the university, you are a member of the university and the department where you're studying. But as well as that, you are a member of a college which has actually done the admissions for you. So the departments and faculties do what every department and faculty at university do. So they'll provide all the lectures, they'll do all the assessments, they'll provide career advice, they set all the exams, they order your degrees. And then what the colleges do is they work in parallel with the departments to provide support for students. So as a member of a college, you will then get access to facilities such as accommodation, sports facilities, dining, recreation facilities, and the college provides a sort of a mini campus where students can actually enjoy all these facilities. But in addition to that, what the colleges do is to provide a lot of academic support and pastoral care for the students. So when you join a college, you're assigned a director of studies, and that director of studies is normally an academic at the department where you're studying, and they act as a mentor and guide you through your academic studies to make sure you are on track. And as well as that, you are assigned a personal tutor who is another academic who is not related to your subject, and they're there to provide you pastoral care, advice. So if you run into any kind of difficulties, any kind of issues which are non-academic, they're there to help and support you. To kind of give you an example, if a student studying at the university becomes unwell quite close to the exams, and their health is going to impact how they perform in their exams, the tutor can then make a representation to the department and ask for an examination allowance on behalf of the student. So this is a really unique setup that you only get at Cambridge. And I don't like mentioning the word Oxford, but at Oxford as well, yeah? And it's very unique. And I actually did my undergraduate studies at a different university. And when I came to Cambridge, that the collegiate system actually provides a level of support for students that you don't get at other universities. So kind of like in a long-winded answer, how I describe a collegiate system is it's basically a system by which you can provide students a lot of support. The colleges are there to give students all the support they need throughout their academic journey. And the last thing that colleges do, which is really important, which is very unique to just Cambridge, is they actually get involved in doing the admissions process. So when you apply to the University of Cambridge to study an undergraduate course, you have to apply to a college. The college then does the selection of that student. And this is really where my role comes into play as director for admissions. I oversee all the undergraduate admissions for Downing College. So making decisions for subjects from medicine all the way through to history of art, I have to review all the applications and I ultimately make the decisions about which students get selected for a place to come and study here.
Great, thank you so much. And maybe Dr. Wong, if this, as you would, you had such undergraduate and all the way through your graduate, maybe from a student perspective, how did you see the college system and what was that like for you?
我刚刚到英国的时候，因为我等于是9月开学，然后我读 one year A level， 等于是刚刚开学的那个星期就要我去选学院报剑桥了，所以我当时也是觉得学院这个概念是非常难理解的。那当时的话呢，我在学校里面的老师给我讲了一个概念，我觉得到现在我也常常用给我的一个学生，可以帮助他们理解这个学院的概念是什么呢？就如果大家都有看过《哈利波特》的话，其实《哈利波特》它里面很多的原型都是 base 在剑桥和牛津这样子的一个 concept 里面的。就好比说呢，就比如说剑桥大学，如果我们把它想成一个大的一个伞，那么下面的每个学院呢，就是不管你进去哪一个学院，其实跟你选择的专业呀，跟你上课是无关的，因为大家都是去同一个专业的 department 去那个系里面上课。那在那个哈利波特里面有一个帽子嘛，去选择哪一个学生去哪一个学院。那其实这个我觉得是有一定的，在现实生活当中也是有那么一定的那个的。就比如说每一个学院他去看学生的时候，他不会在意你是不是喜欢玩这个 rugby 呀，或者是喜欢艺术啊，这个不会影响学院在admit 你的这个阶段。但是呢，你作为一个学生在选学院的时候，其实可以看，比如说我当时去了 New Hall Maria Edwards College 的原因是因为我当时发了一封邮件给所有的学院，因为我说我要读 engineering， 但是呢，同时我对艺术很感兴趣。那就是比如说，然后很多学院就会发邮件回来跟我讲，他们每个学院虽然你是读工程系的学生，但是你课外的时候在艺术方面学院有什么 facilities 可以去 support 你。那比如说像 New Hall College 的话，我们是一个女子学院，而且它是拥有全欧洲最大的女性艺术家的 collection， 那这个是很有趣的一件事情。然后再加上比如说，因为我在工程系读书的话，其实男女生的比例还是有一定差距的。那我觉得如果说我去参加一个女子学院，我去 department 上完课了之后，回到学院里面有一群跟我一样在读工程的这些女工程师，而且我们的学院毕业了以后，我有很多 alumni 可以到时候帮助我guide 我去一些作为一个女性在工程的这个 industry 里面去找工作啊什么的。那这个可能是我在选学院的时候，我当时选择了我们学院的一个原因。那还有一些学院的话呢，比如说Girton College， 它是唯一一个有 swimming pool 的一个学院，它是唯一一个有游泳池的学院。那很多学生说我在高中的时候我喜欢打water polo 啊什么的，那我可能进到学院了之后，进到大学以后，我希望我可以继续的去训练，那我可能会选择 Girton 学院，因为它自己就有自己的游泳池。那或者是我可能喜欢打cricket， 我还真不知道 cricket 的中文是什么，但是比如说像 cricket 的话，它可能在英国不是每个学院都有 cricket 的这个 ground， 那我可能会选择有 cricket ground 的这些学院来做一个选择。其实学院的话呢，就相当于就是 不要把学院跟专业去搞混。很多学生说我要读某一个专业，我去报哪个学院比较好，或者是我是一个中国学生，我去报哪一个学院对中国学生比较友好。其实这个呢都是没有任何的根据的。学院跟专业或者学院说哪一个学院比较喜欢国际学生，尤其是中国学生，这些呢都是没有任何的根据的，也没有任何的connection。所以的话呢，我觉得大家在选学院的时候呢，最主要是了解这个学院的气质，它的 facilities， 它能给到你需要的一些帮助，学术上的也好，生活上的也好，或者是之后就业方面的也好，我觉得这个在选学院的上面是非常重要的。
Thank you both so much. Thank you for Dr. Wong saying that, Cambridge colleges is like, Harry Potter, right?
Yeah,
Cam hates it when I say it. Yeah. But it's a very good example. Everybody can relate to it. Yeah.
It is. So actually following that, it's like in Harry Potter, each of the houses had their own traditions. So I'm just wondering, can you share about a tradition that Downing College, like that you particularly, really enjoy? Like if there's one tradition that really speaks to you.
So the one thing that really is a nice tradition at Downing is we have something called Keith's Cafe. So the chaplain, every college has a chapel. And our chaplain every Wednesday during term organizes a cafe for coffee, tea, donuts, and cakes for free. And all the students can come together and gather outside the chapel grounds and have a cup of tea and a catch up with each other. And that's one of the nicest things about Downing is really when the community comes together, they all have a social, they take a half an hour break, have a cup of tea, catch up with friends, catch up with fellow students and college members, and really just get time out and relax. And that's probably one of the nicest traditions about Downing. The other thing that's really special about Downing is that it actually gives a lot of emphasis on its spaces. We have very unique spaces at Downing, which other colleges don't have. For example, we have our own art gallery, the Hyun Gallery, where we put on exhibitions from famous artists around the world. And when we set these exhibitions up, we ask students to actually facilitate and organize and run the gallery. So undergraduates, which may be studying physics or chemistry or engineering or history, who have a passion for art or want to learn about art, can come and get involved in the gallery. The college also has a state-of-the-art theatre, and it's a great space where students can go and explore their passion in drama, music, singing, anything like that. So the college has its own choir, jazz band, its dramatic society, and students put on performances all year round that they've created themselves. For example, we do something known as a festival of writing, where undergraduates get together, write their own plays, direct them, and actually then come together and do the performances in college. And they're very, very popular events. And those are probably the things which I think are probably quite unique about Downing and stand out about Downing as a tradition of what it tries to do as part of the experience of coming to study here.
Great. Dr. Wong, how about yourself?
因为我自己没有在当年有学生的一个经验嘛，所以我觉得作为学生的话，你不管在哪一个学院学习过，可能会给你的那个感觉会比较强烈一点。那像唐宁学院的话呢，它的一些比较 unique 的 tradition， 就像刚才 Cam 讲的，那还有一个Cam 没有讲的关于唐宁学院的一个比较 unique 的一点呢，就是虽然学院跟专业没有关系，但是呢，有一些因为历史的原因，在现在这个 system 是 UCAS system， 但在 UCAS system 之前，每个学院呢，它可能去 provide 的 subject 没有像现在一样那么的完全，所以呢，因为历史的原因，有一些学院可能会比较多某一个 subject 的学生。那其实像唐宁学院呢，刚才 Cam 没有讲到了，就是我们唐宁学院呢特别多法律系的学生， 因为在过去可能几十年之前呢，很多法律系的学生从唐宁学院毕业了以后呢，现在是在我们英国的大法官，所以因为有这样的一个很强的一个校友的这个系统呢，所以呢，唐宁学院它的法律的学生的这个团体呢是特别的pronounced 的。那比如说，那我虽然要帮唐宁学院招生，那可能其他的学院每个学院都有他自己的一个风格。那比如说像我自己以前的这个 New Hall 的这个学院，我刚才讲了，它的话呢，艺术品特别的多。那么学生不管是读什么样的专业的话呢，他可能都会对艺术这一块有一个浓厚的兴趣，他可以参与。那如果到我们New Hall 学院去看一下的话呢，它有很多的艺术品的展览在 New Hall 进行。那么还有一个就是这个，因为我们都是女子的学生才可以进到学院里面去，那可能呢会有一个女性之间的一个 bonding， 那可能在之后找工作呀，还有平常的时候，这个女性之间的一个 bonding 会帮助我们大家很多。那还有像 Homerton College 的话呢，它有一个特色，就是因为当年哈利波特虽然最后没有播出，但是呢，有一段时间的录制呢是在 Homerton College 进行的，所以 Homerton College 它有一个 formal dinner 呢，会比较特别的是，它会有真的猫头鹰，它是一个哈利波特的一个 theme， 它可能真的有那个猫头鹰会在那个 hall 里面飞来飞去啊什么的。那所以这样子的话呢，其实每个学院都会有自己比较有特色的地方。但是唐宁学院的话呢，我想in addition to what Cam said, like we have a very strong law student society in Downing College as well.
Thank you both so much for that, and just giving really your own insight and your perspective into Downing College. Sounds amazing, all the things that you shared. But I love jazz music, so for me, I'm like, oh, that's very cool. So always very to learn about. I actually about 6 years ago, I had the extraordinary opportunity to do a counselor fly-in and go into Cambridge, and I was actually able to sit in a mock supervision session. We all know that supervision sessions are what makes Cambridge very unique. So I'm just wondering if you can share what is a supervision session, right? What is that format of teaching at Cambridge, and then also, how can students really prepare themselves for that type of learning, because that is a big part of the learning process at Cambridge. Dr. Yunus, if I can go to you first.
So the supervisions are quite a unique way of teaching, which is unique to Cambridge. I mean, when I can again talk from my own experience, I did my undergraduate studies at a different university, and when I arrived at Cambridge, I had to get used to the supervision system, and I was having to teach on the supervision system. The way they work is they're designed to help students consolidate what they've learned in their lectures. So students attend their lectures and their classes at the faculties, and then the supervisions are organized by the colleges back in the colleges when the students come back to their own colleges in the end of the day. And they're all run by subject specialists who teach on the undergraduate course. And the idea is to say, right, in your supervisions, you've covered these particular topics. Let's now explore how we can apply your understanding. Let's take what you've learned in those lectures now, and let's try and see what it actually means. Let's try and put it into context. And then the supervisions are designed to really take the students further and actually get them to really develop their understanding and apply their understanding to their subjects. That's the whole idea. Whether it's a STEM subject, where they will give you lots of problems to do in the supervisions, or whether it's an arts and humanities subject, where they will get you to write an essay and really develop your own opinions about your subject. The whole idea is to get you to start thinking independently, get you developing your understanding of your subject, and really challenge yourself and go beyond the curriculum to develop a real insight into your subject. And this is what makes Cambridge stand out. When you have graduates leaving the University of Cambridge, because they get trained with this kind of teaching style, they become quite agile and very diverse in their abilities, because the supervision system challenges them so much about developing their understanding of their subject that when they go into industry, into various kinds of careers, they're actually quite competitive. They're actually quite well adversed in being able to apply themselves and develop themselves in any different environments. And this is why graduates from Cambridge are so well thought for by companies, and they go on to have very successful careers. Now, in terms of how to prepare for supervisions, I mean, the key thing is students have to kind of learn around their subject, have to go through their lectures, try and consolidate their understanding. But I always tell students, I don't mind if you're not come prepared for your supervisions. What I do want you to do is come with questions so I can help fill in the gaps, really help bridge those points where you can't connect and as a theory that you've learned in a subject lecture in the morning to a concept, an application that we want to discuss in the supervision. So it's really about helping them and supporting them to consolidate their understanding, but also make sure you guide them and advise them on how to broaden their context around their subject.
Great. And how about you, Dr. Wang? How about yourself?
比如说，因为我自己的 background 是 engineering， 所以我觉得刚才 Dr. Cameron 已经讲了很多，就是总体的这个 supervision 这相关的一些信息。那我觉得可能给大家在实例，大家可能会比较容易理解一点。那比如说像 engineering department 的话呢，我们比如说在 engineering department 上大课上 lecture 的时候，或者是做experiment 的时候，你可以想象一下 engineering 系非常的大，它一年可能有300多个学生，将近400的学生在同一个 lecture room 里面上课。那这个时候，你这个 lecturer 进来上完课他就走了，然后给你的是 example sheet， 就像一个 homework 一样，一个 sample sheet 去让你去做。那如果说，我们自己去做，自己直接去听 lecture 的话，其实是非常非常困难的，因为你作为大学来讲，他没有办法去 assess 你在学习的过程当中是不是理解了，是不是学会了，直到最后考试的时候，那考试之前他没有任何的方法去evaluate 你的学习的状况怎么样，你的学习的progress 怎么样。那作为学生的话，我们是没有办法直接说300多个学生在下了 lecture 之后跑过去问 lecturer 什么问题的。那这样子的话呢，对于我们来讲的话，如果没有 supervision 的话，也是非常困难在学习上面。那再加上的话呢，剑桥大学的 term time 非常的短，它一年有3个学期。那像 engineering 的这个课程来讲的话呢，一年3个学期，每个学期的只有8个星期这么长。那第一个学期8个星期，第二学期8个星期上完了之后呢，像我们工程系的学生，第3个学期一开始就需要去考试了。所以大家可以想象一下，这么多的内容，在一年里面只有16个星期的上课时间。那我们就要去准备考试，是非常非常困难。那这个时候 supervision 就起到作用了。每周你每一张 paper 在上完 lecture 之后，你会回家去做这个 example sheet 嘛？那你做完 example sheet 之后，你对 example sheet 的问题以及对 lecture 的这些问题，你都可以在 supervision 的过程当中跟 supervisor 去询问。supervisor 会 go through 这个 example sheet with you， 然后 go through example sheet cover 的这些 knowledge 点，这些 units with you。那这样子的话呢，去给你就是这样子有一个1对1或者1对2、1对3的一个非常小的intimate 的一个环境里面去保证你是直接是非常好的在消化 lecture 里面或者是在 laboratory 里面教你的这些内容的。那这个时候就是我觉得这个 supervision 的这个 system 设立的非常好，就在这里了。它确实是可以帮助，可以做到一个个人化，因为你上大学了之后，很多学生没有办法 adapt 一点，就是从高中转化到大学，他突然就觉得我虽然要 independently 的去学习，但是我得到的帮助很少。那这样的话，因为有 supervision 这个 system 的话呢，学生在每一个阶段学术上面呢，都会有一个1对1、1对2非常小班化，特别小班，因为就是like1 to 1 1 to 2， 对吧？非常小班化，然后会给到你很多的 attention 去 make sure 你有任何的问题，你都可以直接的去问你的 supervisor， 他会给你 go through 所有的问题。那这个是 supervision 非常非常好的一点，对。
Thank you both so much for sharing what really makes the Cambridge educational experience really unique to itself, the support, and then also talking about Downing College and the other colleges. So now that our community knows what it's like at Cambridge, I'm going to ask a set of questions to see how they can prepare themselves to apply. and what that application process is. So I actually just wanted to start with, I know, as we shared before, students being well-read, students being knowledgeable are really important for, for them to prepare themselves to go to Cambridge. So, may I ask, so like, are there any books that you recommend that the students maybe start to read to prepare themselves? I know there's many different, of course, the department of faculties, but if you want to comment on any, or your own, engineering. So if you can just, give some advice about how students can start to get themselves ready in that reading and that learning process.
So there's a few things that you need to kind of think about. What I will do is give some advice about specifically applying to Cambridge. First of all, depending on the subject you're applying for, you need to think about whether you have to sit an entrance exam. Some subjects such as medicine, engineering, natural sciences, chemical engineering and biotechnology, economics, law, they all have an entrance exam. Students have to sit these tests, and we use these tests to evaluate which ones we want to shortlist for an interview. So it's really important that when they're preparing their application, they think about how to prepare themselves to sit these tests. Now, I'm going to be very honest. Students from China are extremely good at exams. And what we find is these students, mainly from China, they all do extremely well at the tests. Yeah. So you are competing with a group of students from the same region, which are going to be very competitive when it comes to doing these tests. So that's one thing I would always advise people to do, is think about the tests and think about how you can prepare for them. Now, the best way of doing it is to do past papers. The best way to do it is to do them under time conditions. The best thing is to try and work through them in a logical way where you can answer as many questions as possible. These tests are designed for you to not finish all the questions by the end of the session. So you need to be efficient about how you answer those questions. So that's one thing, the tests. Then if you are fortunate enough to be invited for an interview, you then need to be able to prepare for yourself to be able to sit the interview at Cambridge and understand how you're going to develop your subject understanding so you can demonstrate your competitive nature in an interview process. Now, when you're doing your interviews, the key thing is what's happening in that environment is we're trying to assess how teachable you are. What we're trying to do is get you to get engaged in a discussion. So my advice to anyone who's applying to Cambridge, if you are shortlisted for an interview, remember you've already gone through an extremely competitive selection process. You're invited for an interview because we're very interested in your application. And at that stage, it's all about engaging in the discussion. You will never know the question that's being presented to you. That's the whole idea. We will always ask a question that you've not seen before. And what we want students to do is apply their understanding, is to take what they've learned so far in their school curriculum and apply it to the scenario or the problem being presented to them at the interview. And it's all about developing that applied approach. Yeah. And so these are the things which are really important. So the question then comes back to, how do you develop that applied approach? What do I do to be able to help myself stand out as a competitive applicant? And the only way of doing it, my opinion, my personal opinion, is supercurricular activities, is reading around your subject. Now, there are different mediums of supercurricular activities. And students often ask me, especially when I'm in Southeast Asia, they ask me, how many of each one should I be doing? And that's not the answer. The answer is you pick the one that you enjoy the most and you explore your subject through that. It could be listening to podcasts. It could be reading around your subject. It could be participating in Olympiads. All of these are examples of supercurricular activities. And what do? They help students develop an applied understanding of their subject, develop a broader context around their subject. And this is the skill sets that they need to develop. And it's not something you can do overnight. It's something I encourage students to do at an early stage when they start when they're in their equivalent of GCSE, so year 10 or year 11, when they are not even starting their A-levels or equivalent qualifications, really start exploring their subject, really developing that applied understanding of their subject, because that's what's going to help them when they come for an interview. Because when you are sitting in front of someone at an interview, you won't know the answer to the question they're asking you, but what you will have is an ability to apply yourself and engage in a discussion to work through the problem, to give an answer, or develop your own interpretation and present your own opinions about an argument or discussion. So those are the key things I always advise students to think about if they're going to be applying to the University of Cambridge.
Great. And Dr. Wang, how about yourself?
我觉得就是in addition to what Cam said，就是因为我之前自己作为一个学生也做过申请，那么我后来做 supervisor 的时候呢，也看到很多国际学生 apply 给他们做面试。那我自己的一个感觉呢，就是咱们国内的学生呢，他有的时候呢，可能非常想要找到一个量化的一个标准。怎么样去申请剑桥大学？那我觉得这个量化的标准呢，是不存在的。就大家不管是在做任何的事情去提高你的这个申请的竞争力的时候呢，大家千万不要去想着我要做什么活动、参加什么竞赛、读什么书去 tick boxes 打卡，这样是没有用的。我觉得反而呢，大家可以想象是这样，剑桥大学呢，它很简单的一句话来讲，它就是要找全世界最有天赋的学生，然后这些有天赋的学生呢，必须也是努力读书的学生。那很多学生的话呢，如果你有这个天赋，你有这个潜力，你有这个对这个学科的热情的话呢，那你已经一只脚踏进了剑桥了。那第二件事情就是让我们可以看到你是不是能够有这个 commitment， 愿意去付出，把你的潜力转化成实际的成绩。那这个时候呢，很多学生就说我怎么样去体现我有天赋，我有这个潜力这件事情，他觉得是不是我应该去参加微科研啊、背题项目啊，或者是竞赛，用一些量化的成绩去体现呢？其实我觉得是没有必要的，因为剑桥的这个整个的申请的它的笔试到面试的过程，它其实设计的非常的巧妙，它不会说就是比如说哪怕笔试这件事情，其实如果说是一个有天赋有潜力的学生，他其实去看一下刚才 Dr. Cameron 讲的这些笔试的话，其实笔试它测试你的这些知识点都不难，ESET 也好，或者是 TMUA 也好，它数学的部分大家不用觉得说我是不是要提前学大一大二的内容，很多中国学生现在已经开始在做这件事情了，或者是我是不是提前要在 IGCSE 的时候就把 A level 的数学读完，这样子我去参加 ESET 和 TMUA 的考试的时候会比较好。并没有，其实它的知识点都是在 GCSE 最多到 AS 这个阶段，它不需要。第一件事情是，学生不需要提前去学习 A level， 不需要提前去学习大一大二的内容，因为我们不是想要找一个提前学了多少内容的学生把它放进剑桥，这是第一个。第二点的话呢，学生不需要就是说去发表一些文章啊，或者是我是不是要去跟一个很大的一个教授做微科研，拿到这个教授的 reference letter， 没有这件事情。因为作为剑桥来讲的话，如果说这个学生他有天赋有潜力，他没有这个经济条件去跟一些大的 professor 去做一些微科研，那我是不是就会错过这样的学生了，对不对？所以的话呢，我们的学生就是像刚才 Cam 讲的，他一定要去找他自己喜欢的 super curricular activity 去做。你是一个竞赛型的学生，你就去参加很多的竞赛，去 sharpen 你的 math skills、physics skills， 对吧？那如果说你不喜欢参加竞赛的，你就喜欢自己闷头在房间里面看一本书的，那你就自己看一本书。看的这本书呢，也不需要说我是不是要去找 University Reading List 来看。其实你去到图书馆里面，我们学校里面的图书馆，我每次进去看，你 engineering 的书，它不代表只是 engineering year 1 year 2 right 都是 textbook you have a lot of things， 比如说跟 building 有关的，比如说 history 跟 building 有关的，或者是比如说跟电学有关的，你在 history 上面或者讲一个科学家的生平，这些可能在你看来跟你学的这些知识没有什么太大的关系，但是都是你对这个学科感兴趣之后，你产生的兴趣想要知道的更多。那其实这些都可以帮助你在申请剑桥的时候脱颖而出，因为我们要找的就是这些对一件事情非常执着、有爱好，然后我能够自己想办法把学习，把 把成绩达到 minimum entry requirement 之后，然后我还有时间去做这个那个的探索的这些学生，其实这些就够了。对，我就很想让中国的学生还有家长知道，不要去花钱，不要去焦虑，去花很多钱去给孩子 tick 很多 boxes， 去给他做很多的背题，所谓提升他的背景。如果你有这个时间，如果你要花这个钱的话，我建议那不如 fill the gap， 你在中国可能把你的语言提高一下，去弥补没有这个语言环境的这个缺陷，然后呢可能会去找一些老师跟你去讨论一些学术的问题，在你现在学习的 A level 之外，不用提前学，而是把你现在学习的内容去丰富起来。就比如说你学了牛顿第一定律、第二定律，不需要去学第三定律，不需要去学更难的题，看一下牛顿当年他除了读这个以外，他还做了些什么事情，就是这些我觉得会比较重要一点。如果学生和家长需要提前去准备的话，可以从这方面去准备。
Thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, really good for our parents to hear because and students, they feel so nervous that they need to do so much, right? And it's just like, as you mentioned before, just enjoy learning the different ways that you're learning. And there's something that you mentioned actually that I wanted to ask, because so also as I mentioned before, in our YCIS schools, we're IB diploma, in our Yawa schools, we're A-level diploma. Sometimes our students feel like, in addition to IB or A-level, they need to go take an AP exam or something like that. Also, sometimes our students feel like, okay, in order to go to Cambridge, I need to do boarding school in the UK. Do you mind commenting on that? Just from, both pieces. One is in addition to the curriculum that I'm doing, I need to take a separate curriculum, extra exams. And then the other is like, in order to go to Cambridge, I have a better chance if I go to a boarding school. Dr. Yunus, if you can, yeah.
Yeah, so the way to answer that is the key thing, anyone who's applying to Cambridge, they need to remember the process is holistic. What do I mean by holistic? I mean that we look at a number of things, yeah, and we make an assessment based on an applicant by looking at these various criteria. Now, those are academic achievements so far. How have you performed academically so far? What are your predicted grades on what you're studying so far? If you're sitting an entrance exam for the subject you're applying for, how you performed in that? There's no pass or fail mark. It's more about what's your score against the gathered field, and are you within the top 20%? We look at any kind of submitted written work you send in. If you're applying for an arts and humanities subjects, we'll want you to send in essays. We'll look at your interview scores. We'll look at any extenuating circumstances. Now, we look at all of these things together. Now, the question always I get asked, is one thing more important than the other? Is it the interview the most important thing in this whole process? And my answer to that question is they're all equally important. There is no fixed recipe of how we choose a candidate. Every application is unique, and every applicant is individually assessed on its own merit. To kind of put that into more context, I may have an applicant, let's just take a hypothetical situation, who's applied for medicine and they've sat the entrance exam and done extremely well. And when they come for the interview, don't do so well. But their academic achievements, their entrance exam results, their school reference, all seem to suggest that this is a very competitive applicant. And just because they didn't do too well at the interview, doesn't mean we will not still consider them for an offer. Likewise, someone might not do very well in the test, but looking at every other thing like their exam results, their school reference, we think this student should have done better in the test looking at all the information we've got about them. Maybe they had a bad day at the test. So we still invite them for an interview sometimes. And if they do well at the interview, they may get an offer. So the point I'm trying to make is every application is unique. Now, how does that feed back into your question about whether they should do A-levels plus other things? I get asked this question all the time. Should I do 4 A-levels? Should I do 5 A-levels? If I did 6, does that make me more competitive? And my answer to that question is that our entrance requirements are based on 3 A-levels, not 4, not 5. So I may have a student who applies to me who's doing more than 3 A-levels, and that's absolutely fine. And we do get a few applicants that do that. But it's all these other things that we're assessing as well. as part of the application process. And if they don't do well in other parts of the assessment, they may not be still considered for a place. So my point is, if you are someone who's studying, don't think that you need to do all these extra qualifications to make yourself stand out. But do these extra things if you're passionate about the subject, if you really want to develop your understanding. For example, if you're applying for a STEM subject at Cambridge, you'll see that the majority of the applicants which have an offer and actually come and study at Cambridge are doing 4 A-levels. And the 4th A-level is further maths. So if you have an opportunity to take further maths as a 4th A-level, I definitely encourage you to do it. But it's not a requirement, because I make offers to students who haven't got further maths as a 4th A-level as well, you know, because I've looked at all the other things and thought that they're still competitive. So, you know, doing extra qualifications is a good thing, but don't, the students, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but in Southeast Asia, you hear it. I've been out on road shows, going visiting schools. Students always ask me this question: does this make me more competitive? And the answer is no, it doesn't. It only makes you more competitive if it allows you to develop your applied approach and allows you to broaden your context around your subject. Think about what is it you're trying to achieve by doing all these things, and how is it going to help you develop your understanding of your subject? And those are more important things to consider. And so it's a balance. Do I develop that broader context by doing an extra A-level? Or do I develop that broader context by spending more time doing supercurricular activities? And that's an individual student has to answer that question themselves. And it's about what is the best medium for them to learn about their subject and how they enjoy learning about their subject. Is it by doing more A-levels? Fine. If it's doing supercurricular activities, that's also fine. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. I mean, I have kind of gone around in a long-winded way.
Yeah.
But I tried to put it into context around the bigger picture of what a student is trying to achieve. In terms of like going to a boarding school or non-boarding school, that has no relevance. Your school background, whether you're overseas, whether you're from the UK, has no relevance. We assess students on academic merit, and that's our only criteria for assessment. So school background has no bearing on an application. And to kind of go one step further, any extracurricular activities has no bearing on your application. So if you play for, in the UK, everyone loves playing football. So I always say in the UK to students, if you play for the under 18 England football squad, doesn't mean that you'll get a place at Cambridge, because our assessment is purely on academic grounds, on academic criteria.
And I can imagine that if our students are doing A-levels, they don't have to go and sit AP like a separate curriculum on their own, right? Yes. Dr. Wong, from your, I'm sorry, if I can just go to Dr. from your perspective, if that's okay. Thank you, Dr. Yunus.
So first of all, I feel like you already got the most official answer from Cameron Yunus anyway. So what I can say is probably just like to support what Cam said. I can tell you, you know, what sort of student I was studying with when I was a student, and then what sort of student I supervised when I was a supervisor. 所以我可以跟你讲一下，就比如说，每个学院在看学生的时候呢，他肯定是不会看你从哪一个学校来的，所以国内有很多的 rumor， 我要进去这个学校，因为这个学校每年有多少学生进去牛津、剑桥的哪一个学院，他们可能跟这个学院的关系比较好，这个呢是完全没有任何的根据的。然后你比如说像我们像我以前的同学呀，还有我现在比如说一起工作的这些同事。有很多是读 A level 的，有很多是 homeschool 的。在剑桥，在英国的话 ，homeschool 非常的多。他可能爸爸妈妈就是可能比如说需要这里那里的去搬家，他可能连学都没有上过，他可能自己在家里面读一下 A level， 自己去参加一些考试啊什么的。其实这些的话都是一样的，你都是一样可以被剑桥去 consider 的。我就想说给大家一个第一， 大家不管在听到什么信息的时候，我觉得你可以问自己一个问题，就是说剑桥它要找全世界最好的这批学生，那如果说这个学生是需要既考 A level 又考 AP 又考 IB 的话，那这个学生如果他 physically 没有办法去做这件事情，很多英国的学校或者很多国内的学校，他没有办法让你双 curriculum 同时去参与的话，那这个学生不是因为他自己不爱学习，或者是自己没有办法去学好这2种 curriculum， 那这种情况下的话，那这个学生不是就被 discriminized 对吧？就没有机会了。那剑桥是绝对不会允许这样的情况发生的，所以不管学校，所以我觉得跟学生和家长可以讲的一件事情就是，不管他们听到什么样的消息，这个是深知想，你反过来问自己一个问题：如果我今天经济条件不够，或者我今天所在的学校 resource 不够的话，如果这个是一个 criteria 剑桥会用的话，这个东西是不是会 eliminate 很多学生没有机会去考剑桥？如果是的话，那就说明这样子的一个标准是一定不可能存在的，因为我们要对所有全世界的学生都做到很公平，这是一个。那第二个的话呢，就是像 Cam 刚才讲的，每一个部分都非常非常的重要。你是4门 A level 也好，还是5门 A level 也好呢？我常常会举这样的一个例子给学生，可能他们会比较容易去理解。如果你想象成在古代的时候，有一个国家的公主比武招亲的这样的一个活动。各国的王子，他肯定是要选全世界最好的那个王子来做驸马。但是呢，比如说每一个国家的王子，他怎么样去进入到这个招亲的环节，他可能需要有多少的银两啊？比如说这个你射箭要射得多好啊？这个公子可能要多少身高，要多少钱，对不对？但是 once 你达到了那个 minimum entry requirement， 进入到这件事情来了以后，公主去跟每一个王子对谈的时候，就不会再看你说你达到，比如说1.8米、1.9米以后，是不是2.2米你就是是变成驸马了，或者是你比如说1000两银两，你是不是这个公子他有5万两、50万两，那就会选他了呢？那这个时候。他就不会再去看你达到了3门 A level， 我要求你2个 A 星1个 A， 那就好像我要求你身高1.8米、1.9米，这个时候你有4门5门。如果你进到去了以后，就像刚才 Cam 讲，他不是帮你整个人的综合素质变高的话，他这个时候不会再去看你是有4门 A level 成绩也好，还是5门 A level 成绩也好了，因为这个事情已经过了，你进去了，我们就是看你其他的一些综合的素质了。所以大家不要去听国内的一些数据，就说啊，去年有一个学生他有6门 A level， 6个 A 星都没有进到剑桥，那我今年是不是除了6个 A 星以外，我还要去再读一个 AP 才可以？其实并没有这样子。所以大家如果首先第一个想的是，这个 rule 如果是存在的话，会不会 eliminate 很多学生不是因为他自己的意愿而导致的？那这样的话呢，剑桥是肯定不会有这样的一个选择方式的。第二个的话呢，就是剑桥它看的是整个总体的。你进去了这个 pool 里面之后，我就是像比武招亲那样去了，那不会再去看你所谓的前面的 A level，A 星了以后是95分的 A 星还是92分的 A 星，这些都不再重要了。对。
Can I also hear from you, as you shared before about, students about involving their supercurricular activities, not checking a box? Can you comment a little bit about, just me sharing with you about our Ed Futures programs before and our student leadership, from a university's perspective, not checking a box, like how can those types of learning or students engaging those learning, like what should they try to be pulling out of that if they want to go into those experiences that helps them to see if they're a right fit for going for learning at Cambridge? Dr. Yunus, if I can start with you.
Yeah, there's a number of things which students need to think about. I mean, the examples you just shared with us, one of them of going to work in hospitals, working with clinicians, and giving students that exposure, so important. If a student's thinking of applying for medicine, it's really important they understand what are the challenges in that career, because ultimately, when we're selecting a student for medicine, we want to select someone where we are going to know that they'll go on and be able to cope with the pressures and demands of that career. But also, we're trying to ask ourselves the question when we're selecting students for medicine: is this going to be a good doctor? Is this person got the right empathy to do this as a career. So giving students the opportunity to really have some work experience and vocational work in the environments that they want to go on and have a career is a great way of getting them to engage in their subject and really understand what is involved in their subject. Also, the other examples you gave were brilliant. They're fantastic. For example, the ones where you're looking at getting them to build things and test things, you know, making sort of sensors for doing underwater sensing and stuff, is getting them to build their engineering skills and getting them to practically think about concepts that they've learned about in theory, maybe in the classroom. It's seeing, how do I apply a bit of theory that I've learned in the class to a practical example and actually put it to practice and use it for something. These are the sorts of skills which are really important. It's giving those students that context, is allowing them to make those connections, connecting the dots, and being able to really understand their subject from the theoretical perspective of this is what the theory tells us, to seeing how that can be interpreted and used in real life. To kind of put this into much more broader context, you know, when I've interviewed students, and I say this, especially when I interview students from Southeast Asia, I may be for chemical engineering or something, I may present them with a mathematical problem in the interview. I ask them to do the calculation. And I'm going to be straight with you. The students from Far East, they can do sort of mental arithmetic and long division in their head faster than I can breathe. You know, they'll come up with the answer really quickly, and they'll get it really accurately to the right answer. And I'd say, that's the correct number you calculated. Now tell me what that number means. And this is really what's important. What does that mean in the terms of a chemical process or that's going to be occurring in the system that I've described? You know, does this reaction go forward or backwards, for example? And it's that context which is so important. And so the things you're doing in your school curriculum, these are brilliant because it's giving them those tools to develop that understanding, to develop that thought process, to be able to really say, what does that number mean, basically?
Thank you, Dr. Yunus. And Dr. Wang, how about you, your thoughts?
I totally agree with Dr. Yunus on all of that. 我觉得就是我觉得学校能够给学生这样子的这个 resource 是非常好的。因为很多学生都没有这样的 resource。然后呢，我想给的建议就是说，因为我面试学生，他们通常是工程系的学生。那很多时候呢，工程系的学生会过来说，我做了一个跟 AI 有关的 project， 我这个 AI project 它可以检测什么大脑的活动啊，或者是比如说什么，但是呢，我们会发现很多时候这样的活动，因为老师或者是因为学校给他了很多 resource。就是比如说把这个事情已经做得非常的完整了。那很多我会建议呢，就是避免学生去做的一件事情，就是学生去参加这个活动，他被给了一个 manual，for example， 他把通过这个 manual 这个 instruction 做完了之后，他觉得 I know AI now, I know quantum physics now， like 就你知道吗？就是很多会有这样的情况。但是如果你返璞归真去问他 ，OK，let's talk about AI。Machine learning 对吧？最简单的什么 linear algebra，y 等于ax plus b。你问他怎么样从 y 等于ax plus b 这个方程式变到去你现在做的这个 AI 的 project， 他 have no idea。那这个就是一个问题了。就是我希望就是我们的这些活动各种各样，我觉得是 draw their passion，draw their interest。但是当他们进去了以后呢，我希望可以给他们越少的 resource， 越少的帮助越好，让他们可以去 actually 从最低层的去一点点去理解，然后哪怕他现在跟那些很 fancy 的那些 theory 啊，跟那些很 fancy technology 还有很大的一个距离，那个才是正常的。然后他也不需要觉得说我一定要做完一个很大的一个 project， 有一个成品 就是很 established 的才叫说我做了 supercurricular activities， 因为就像 Cam 讲的，很多时候学生反而是最简单的 foundation， 他那块地方没有理解透，那他可能在面试的时候，如果我要去让你讨论你在学校里面做的 robotics 这个project， 他可能会突然之间就发现他做的这些可能并不能帮助他在面试的时候脱颖而出。那我觉得这个是我想要给学生的一个建议。那还有比如说像在医院里面，像刚才 Cam 讲的，如果是做一个医生的话呢，一样的道理，大家不要觉得说我要去在医院里面跟医生去做一些非常 high level 的、非常高级的一些活动。最主要的，我们不需要去找一个已经跟医生学过医、已经知道怎么样在医院里面做医生的学生来学医啊。我们要找的是你在医院里面，你哪怕帮病人换床单，你哪怕能够比如说落手落脚的去帮病人去给他洗身体呀，帮他比如说去换一下尿布啊，这些是厌恶型的一个工作。那你如果说要去做兽医也好，要去做医生也好，我们主要看的是你有没有办法有这样子的性格，有这样子的这个忍耐力去做这样子的工作，这个才是我们要去看的，而不是说你在高中这个阶段已经研究了什么新药出来啊，或者是已经知道比如说 target cancer treatment 这些。就我觉得很多学生他有的时候家长他在 compare 这些 supercurricular activities 的时候，他会去觉得说，哦，这个去年已经有人做过了，我们不要再做了。其实最基本的、最低级的才是最有用的。对。
Thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, sorry, Mr. Yunus, go ahead.
One thing I just wanted to add, what just Mang said. What I would say to any school student that's watching this video, one thing I would advise them to do is go on. I mean, I know you need to go through the VPN. Go onto the YouTube channel for Discover Downing. There's also one for Downing College. We put a lot of resources on there online. And on those YouTube channels, we've actually put mock interviews, certain subjects, where the interviewer is interviewing a student and asking them the type of questions they would ask in an interview. And at the end of the interview, then goes through and dissect and tell us where the candidate did well, where they could have improved. This is going to give you a very clear insight into what actually happens in a Cambridge interview. You'll see one in play. But more importantly, you'll see how the interviewer wants to engage the student in the conversation. And then this will put into more context why we keep saying about being applied in your approach, broadening your context, because it's all about those skills that we're really trying to evaluate in an interview.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was actually very interesting. We were both sharing just earlier in our meeting with Dr. Hurley, our director for Ed Futures. We were just talking about our students going to a VEX robotic competition, and some other schools actually hire coaches to literally almost like do the competition for them. And our kids, they struggle, but we're like, that's fine. You're supposed to struggle, right? You're supposed to, like, as you mentioned, that's the whole point of it. And then again, going back to like, it's not just achieving this or that, but really want our kids to, our students, especially students, as you heard tonight, try, like read, try, give it a shot. So on behalf of all of our schools, I just want to thank you so much. We are very thankful that you'll be coming to visit our school in Puxi in Shanghai. And we're very thankful you took the time to do this recording so that, for our students that are in Yantai and Qingdao and Beijing, they have a chance to really also learn from your insight, especially from our parents. I think hopefully parents, you learn that your children are awesome. So just, allow them to learn. And yes, engage. Dr. Yunus, you wanted to share something else, please.
Just one other thing. I mean, just to touch on something else, the reason why we run our international programs at Downing is precisely for the things we've discussed here today. It's about giving students an opportunity to come and experience how we teach at Cambridge and really get an insight into what do we want you to do to develop your understanding of your subject. So the course we've run at Downing College every summer now, we've run it for 2 summers now, is aimed at giving students that clear guidance, because so many of them they're full of so many questions, and many times they've been misguided. And when they come on this program, they suddenly go away, with a clear picture of, actually, this is how I need to really research my subject. This is how I need to develop my understanding. because this is what we do on the course with them. We say, right, are you interested in engineering? Come to our engineering course. Let's challenge you. Let's put you in the classroom with a subject specialist who teaches undergraduates here, and let's explore an application of engineering with you and explore what you've learned so far in maths and physics and apply it to something that you've not seen before. And then what we do is we take them away. We take them to a museum. There's a museum for all the different types of planes, a War Memorial Museum in Duxford. And we show them different planes and say, right, now you've been learning about aerodynamics in the class with the tutor. Now let's try and apply that and look at these plane designs and see how they've evolved over the decades to what we know today. And it's, again, it's making those connections. And we're trying to teach them in that interactive environment so they can develop that. And it's not about them knowing the answers. It's about them developing the answer with us, going on a journey with us to learn and understand what the answers are, or develop an understanding about their subject.
That sounds like an amazing program. And yes, please, parents and students, the Downing International College Program, the chance that you get to go in the summer and really just learn and just be a part of the community. And so please do, when you receive the email from this, after you signed up, you'll see that we'll attach the brochures in both languages. Please read. And then the email for the summer program is there. If you have any questions, please email and ask. I know it's only in the fall, but it's good to just start thinking about, like, what kind of experience do I want in the summer, again, just to help with me with my learning, especially if you're thinking about, Cambridge, as you heard tonight. If what you heard tonight excites you, like, that's where I want to learn, that's the kind of place that's a good fit for you. If it's a good fit for you, then absolutely, please go to the international program, because it'll just really helps. I think from what I'm hearing, it helps like solidify and also gets you ready for that type of learning. So on behalf of all of our schools, on our executive board and our educational directors, all of our school leadership, and just our families and our students, thank you so much for taking so much time for meeting with us. And we're excited to see you in person soon. Have safe travels. And have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed the webinar this evening. In our next episode, we will have Ms. San Lee, the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at University of California, Davis, to come share about the university systems in California and also how our students can prepare for the application. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode in November. Have a wonderful evening.